Hi, welcome back to another Crypto Dave video. So in today's video, I sit down with Mauricio Di Bartolomeo from Ledn. He's co-founder and CSO at Ledn, and we talk about a multitude of subjects in today's interview. I've managed to cut it down to about 30 minutes, but we could have easily talked for I think an hour or two. But we go over his background mining Bitcoin in Venezuela, and then move on to the foundation of Ledn, going through the different Ledn products, security, their partnerships with Genesis and BitGo, and then we go over some new coins and features which may be coming to the Ledn platform in the foreseeable future. And as always, a little bit of fun, we finish up with our Bitcoin price prediction. Now, as I said, it's a little bit of a longer video than normal, so I have time-stamped the different sections, so feel free to check the description below and jump into the different sections that interest you. But I hope you enjoy the video. Let's get on with it. So thanks very much, Mauricio, for joining me today. For those of you who don't know about Mauricio and about kind of Ledn, do you want to give us just a very brief intro to yourself, how you got into crypto, and then how you started kind of Ledn and how you got into that side of things?
Yeah, definitely. And thanks a lot for having me on, Dave. And it's always a pleasure to be on to talk about what we build and what we're doing at Ledn. My name is Mauricio, as you mentioned. And for those of you who may not know, I am originally born and raised in Venezuela. So even though I did my school in Canada, my whole family is still back in Venezuela. So I'm still very, very close with the community there. And I spend a lot of time of the year there. So the way I got into Bitcoin originally was my younger brother actually had started mining Bitcoin in Venezuela in around 2015, early 2015. And it's a very long story, but I guess I'll give you the synopsis of it. Was that at around 2015, Venezuela was in a deep, deep recession. Chavez, the dictator, had just basically passed away. And Maduro, his new sidekick, essentially stole the very next election openly. And many Venezuelans were just crushed. A lot of us had made plans to leave the country, like myself. A lot of us didn't want to leave the country, like my brother.
Yeah.
And my brother basically started finding opportunities for businesses that he could do in Venezuela that would not be affected by the terrible economic situation the country was going under. And basically, he pitched businesses to my dad. And my dad was kind of the angel VC, and myself and my brother were the analysts. Okay. And so all of us got to pitch to my dad. And if it was good enough, he would write us a seed check, and we could all start a little venture. So it was my youngest brother's turn this time, but the country was in shambles. So there was not a lot that was going to get the check mark. And so after several proposals, one of the proposals that comes through is these Bitcoin mining machines. Yeah. And I had never heard of Bitcoin at the time. So that was my first, interaction with Bitcoin. I analyzed my brother's idea. I found it interesting, particularly more so because it was not connected to the country in any way. Yeah. And so just because it had been quite a while and we could sense the frustration building up on him, and we just really wanted to get his feet wet, we all kind of agreed as a family to kind of get this going and support him in this venture. I was in Canada at the time. I was going back and forth between Canada. So we did this, I believe it was like early or mid 2015. And I can remember is when I went back for Christmas that year, or I forget if it was July or for Christmas that year, but it had been 6 months. So this had started. And when I came back, he had like twice as many machines. Wow. And he had a smile ear to ear, and he was pretty much the only Venezuelan with a smile at the time. And I asked him to explain to me how he was doing this. And he showed me basically his machines. He showed me how they would mine Bitcoin, then get to the wallet, then from the wallet to an exchange to his bank account. And all the light bulbs went off for me. And I started mining myself, learning about mining. We grew up around inflation, so we knew inflation very well. And we saw this asset appreciating in US dollar terms, and us having a massive electricity subsidy, like just all the light bulbs were going off. So we started essentially working on building mines and helping other people build mines in Venezuela. And a lot of people started building mines very quickly.
Fantastic. So Ledn as a company, that came about, when was that? Was that in 2017? So you had this transition from kind of starting with mining and then moving more into sort of financing, trying to finance kind of mines and then financing other people within the kind of the industry. So that was a gradual kind of process, was it? Or, was it a kind of light bulb moment where you were like, actually, this could be a business in amongst itself?
Yeah, it was a gradual process. So as I mentioned, we first started with the concept of trying to build mines here in Canada. And we did that just for about 2017. And right around, at very early 2018, we had already basically switched gears to build Ledn.
Right.
Ledn officially started in September of 2018.
Okay.
That was the official, creation of Ledn as a company, and we closed our seed round basically September 2018.
Fantastic.
So that's when the even at that moment we had already started the development work for Ledn, but officially it came to be on September 18th of 2018.
Fantastic, excellent. And as a company, you have sort of two main products, I suppose. You have a kind of third, which we'll kind of come on to. But for those of you, watching who don't know a lot about Ledn, you work within the centralized finance space, so very much like a company like BlockFi would be a competitor and someone within the same space. So you offer, on the one hand, interest accounts for people's crypto, so people can deposit their crypto with you and earn interest on it. And then on the other side, loans backed by that crypto. So if I want to get a US dollar loan or a stablecoin kind of loan backed by a Bitcoin, I can deposit my Bitcoin with you and you will give me a loan kind of backed by that.
That is correct. So we offer primarily lending and savings products for Bitcoin in particular and USDC. So very much on point, like you said. We have two savings products, so savings accounts for both Bitcoin and USDC.
Yep.
We're very proud that we work with Genesis and offer the highest rates and the interest rates for both of those accounts. So in the Bitcoin savings accounts, we pay 6.5% APY, and on the USDC savings accounts, we pay 10% APY. And none of those require tokens or staking or minimums or tiers. We're very much, we like this: no games, no hoops to jump through.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is really good kind of timing for this interview, because I know it's only a week and a half since you announced those kind of higher rates. And one of the things I always liked when I first got into kind of centralized finance, always liked about kind of BlockFi, was the fact that you didn't have to buy into an ecosystem. You didn't have to buy a load of tokens, or you didn't have to be paid out in tokens, anything like that. It was very simple. It was like, you deposited your Bitcoin, you could be paid out in that Bitcoin or anything kind of else. Obviously, they have the tiers, so 1 to 5, 6%, and then 3.8 or whatever it is over and above that. But what I really liked about kind of Ledn, and this was when I was starting to put more of my kind of Bitcoin into some of these kind of platforms, and I've used, BlockFi, Celsius, Ledn, Crypto.com, a lot of these different platforms. But the thing I really liked about you was the simplicity of it. There was no kind of token, there was nothing else. And I think for new people maybe into the kind of space going, I've got a couple of Bitcoin maybe, or I've bought some kind of stablecoin, I'd like to earn interest on that, because you can't get anything from the banks or any kind of like traditional kind of savings. I think that simplicity is really quite nice. I think then saying to somebody, oh, you have to be paid out in Celsius token, or you have to buy up a load of MCO, as it was now CRO, to get these kind of interest rates, I think is probably a bit of a stumbling block. Maybe not to people within the kind of industry kind of like us, but certainly people who are coming to it afresh.
Absolutely. And listen, being Venezuelan, a lot of people in the space, in the crypto space, in Bitcoin in particular, a big part of our mission is we're in a very unique space in that we can offer clients pretty much globally the ability to work with not only Ledn, but Genesis. So a completely transparent organization in Canada, and then again with the absolute top institutional lender in New York. So, and you can do that by sitting in your home in Bogota with one click, and you will get the same rates, the same service, and the same everything than a rich person in Palo Alto is going to get. We are huge believers in that. And when you start building prerequisites to use your service, you start carving out the inclusiveness out of the platform. We couldn't, and everything we've done on this front is by design. We have a lot of clients in countries like Venezuela, Colombia. If we told those clients that they had to buy $2,500 to earn X, what's the underlying message to them? Is you're not rich enough. You don't have the assets to get this service. We really believe in inclusion, and we really do think that companies should do more to kind of cater to these types of users. Like another thing that we've done on that front is we're the lender with the lowest minimum loan amount. That's by design. Mm-hmm. People at Ledn can get a loan starting at $500. No other lender lets you get loans that little, because we knew that if we went down to Latin America with a minimum loan size of $25,000, well, who's that helping?
Yeah.
Really. So we very much just build with intent. We obviously we're not we're human, so we're not perfect. Mm-hmm. But when we build, we like to build with intent. So another one of the things that we did recently, for example, just to give you a sense of the kind of tech that we build, we love building new products and we love building new features. But something that we're also very conscious of is how comfortable are the clients with interacting with these products that we're building if it's not in their language to begin with.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
So a big piece of our work, even though it's a lot of work, we basically just spent a lot of effort and time making our site available in full Portuguese. So
I saw the email announcing that, just in the last week, I think it was.
Yeah, and so that's something that makes us incredibly proud, because now there are millions of people in countries like Brazil and Portugal mm-hmm. that perhaps would have used Bitcoin or a USD savings account if they just understood it a little bit better, or if they just felt a little bit more comfortable with it. That's the kind of work we're trying to do. And that's something we're very proud of. And not surprisingly, we're seeing Brazil now show up as one of the countries that derives us the most traffic.
Well, something I was interested to ask you. I mean, it seems to me that you're kind of like targeting almost kind of like two different kind of groups. So do you have such a thing as a kind of like an average user? Are they based in South America? Are they based in North America or Europe, the rest of the world? Is it mainly individuals with small amounts? Is it larger, wealthier individuals? Is it kind of small businesses? Do you have, a spread of people, or do you really kind of focus, and has it kind of like just worked out that way that you are getting most of your customers from a certain kind of like region or kind of like size?
Yeah, so the very interesting thing, so I'll speak about two things. So one is about the sort of average persona of a Ledn client. Mm-hmm. And then the other one is perhaps the journey on where our user mix is today, or our client mix is today, and where they come mostly from. So to speak a bit about the persona of Ledn, because Bitcoin is so inclusive, the average user of Ledn services in Canada can be very different than the average user of Ledn services in Colombia or Venezuela, right? So if you look at, for example, the more developed countries where their currencies are more stable and they haven't perhaps had so much trouble with inflation, what we see is that our average user tends to be an older user, tends to be generally within the 30 to 35 age plus, mm-hmm. And fairly compliant and wealthy individual. They don't have an issue with the KYC piece. They understand, they see a benefit, the fact that they can download their tax documents. So they're very much a compliant, I would say, Bitcoin investor that is really thinking about Bitcoin in the long term, with a very long-term view. Mm-hmm. That would be, I think, the persona for the North America and sort of Europe Ledn user. In Latin America, we see a bit of a mix. There's a bit more on the younger side. People it's more broad as far as the age ranges.
Yeah.
And the average deposit and the average loan size obviously also varies. They tend to be smaller in Latin America. Mm-hmm. But one of the lovely things that, at least to me, it's just by following some of our client journeys, is they are real people. Like clients in Latin America are the kind of people that will be sending $50 a week to their Ledn account, or $100 worth of Bitcoin, every 2 weeks. And we have seen clients that have built up enough of a Bitcoin position in their savings accounts with the goal of getting a loan. And so they've been contacting us and they've been kind of telling us, hey, I'm almost there. I'm very excited to get my first loan. And I've even had clients reach out to me personally saying, hey, Mauricio, I want to thank you for the service. I've been sending Bitcoin over time and I finally now have enough to get my first loan. I'm very excited that I did it.
Wow.
As far as use cases, for example, like use cases that are a bit unique in Latin America, where you can see that Bitcoin is their highest and best asset. We've had clients that have taken out loans to buy medicine for a relative. We have clients that have taken out loans in countries like Mexico this was pre-COVID, but the one client was very excited because he wanted to start a business. Starting a business is a very common reason for a loan, in fact. And, he actually went into detail telling us he was going to start a music festival and with his money, and that he was so excited that he didn't have to sell his Bitcoin. So it's really cool to enable some of these life stories that we get to hear.
Yeah. I mean, and I think, as you said just before, real people, these are, real people doing, real things rather than just numbers on a spreadsheet, which is, I imagine, how many of us, think, a lot of kind of businesses within centralized finance kind of work. Something I really want to talk to you, going back to the interest rate. So as we mentioned before, so you now get 6.5% on Bitcoin, 10% on USDC, which is kind of market leading. It's bigger than, BlockFi, bigger than Celsius, bigger than crypto.com, unless you, I don't know, have half of your, income of the country locked up in tokens. What I'm really interested in is how much are those interest rates driven by market conditions, and how much are they driven by your competitors? And I just want to throw one idea out. I don't see this really with Ledn, but certainly within Celsius, I see a huge amount, almost like a sort of back and forth between Celsius and BlockFi. So BlockFi, for example, last week put their Litecoin rates up to 5%, or yesterday Celsius put them up to 5.05. We saw the same with stable coins. So BlockFi was I think 8.6 was it, and then Celsius came in at 8.69 or something. So, and it seems to be a lot of kind of like tit for tat. It's like, one person's rate is here, so we'll just add a fraction onto it. Now that seems to be very much driven by their competitors to try and get a larger slice of the kind of pie, more so maybe than the market conditions. Obviously, we're in quite a bullish kind of like stage of kind of market at the moment. Does that open up more flexibility to kind of push rates higher? How does the kind of like market sentiment translate into kind of rates? And just really interested to get your kind of perspective on that.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll start by saying that every rate that we set at Ledn is entirely organic and driven by market conditions. So we have not, and we will not subsidize our rates and basically artificially create expectations that cannot be sustainable for that. Yeah. We are very obsessive, or when we try our hardest to keep the rates stable. We know our clients don't necessarily love when rates move around. And so as part of this recent raise in rates, one of the things we wanted to do was to give the comfort or the benefit to our clients that they were going to be able to enjoy these rates until the end of the year. And the way we said it, my partner and I were just talking about it and said, it would be really great if we could do this, because this year has just been really unpredictable enough as it is.
Yeah.
So just being able to know that at least you're going to earn this much towards the end of the year, that gives them comfort, at least in a time where not a lot of things are certain.
Yeah.
So that was something that we worked very closely with Genesis to do. And again, these new rates are a function of market demand to borrow digital assets on the institutional side.
Yeah.
With the run-up, we did see a massive increase in demand to borrow both Bitcoin and dollars. And frankly, you can see this, it's mentioned around, but there's also opportunity costs right now for stable coins really, and digital assets in general, because you have essentially the opportunity cost if you're sophisticated enough to go after DeFi type opportunities.
Yeah, of course, like yield farming and stuff like that.
So a lot of that stuff, so there's almost like a perfect storm of a shortage of assets, because we just had the halving that effectively took off the supply in half. Then we have the other interesting dynamic is investment funds like the GBTC and the fund here in Canada, the 3IQ fund. Those funds are just swallowing coin, and they're swallowing real coin that gets taken out of circulation in exchanges. So you're having these funds constantly build positions. And they're taking spot Bitcoin, real Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
You have the halving that came in. Now you have the DeFi opportunity cost. And then on top of that, you throw in a run up in price.
Yeah.
So the demand for borrow is just through the roof. And so that allows us, again, we try to be very long-term as far as the moves we make in terms of rates. So before we went out and did these rates, we worked very closely with Genesis and saying, so is this something that we're going to be able to sustain for the rest of the year? Can we provide that benefit? Yes. Then let's go out to our clients.
And I think as well as rates, so I think the two things that people look mostly at, but particularly on the kind of interest side of things, but, you know, loans as well, is what are the rates, you know, the best rates. And then I think once they get involved in the space, they then start talking or thinking more about kind of security and what is going to happen if this company goes bust, what happens if they're hacked, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd like to kind of give you two different scenarios, if I may. If I'm, say, putting a Bitcoin in your platform to earn interest on, where does that Bitcoin go? And on the other side, if I give you a Bitcoin and then take out a loan against that, what happens to that Bitcoin? Do they go to the same place? Do they go to different places? What's the kind of accountability and the kind of structure behind that?
Yeah, no problem. That's a great question. So on the lending side, on the savings side, sorry, let's start with that. Yeah. When a person places Bitcoin or USDC in our savings accounts, what Ledn does is essentially it aggregates those deposits, and when they reach the tranche size, we lend them out to Genesis in order to generate that return.
Okay.
So it's pretty simple. It's really what we do, manage a flow to basically process withdrawals in a timely manner. Yep. And we do our best to essentially keep the balances on those floats to a point where they can both facilitate quick withdrawals and earn the highest interest we can, so we can pass the most to our clients. So it's pretty straightforward, essentially on the mechanics of that side. And similarly on the lending side. So on the lending side, our custodian is BitGo. So we do keep custody of the Bitcoin while the loan is active. So when you take a loan with us, you send us 2 Bitcoin, we hold custody of those 2 Bitcoins while your loan is outstanding. Yep. And when you repay the loan, we will return the Bitcoin right away, either to your savings accounts within Ledn or to your external address. It's, you know, you can choose. Mm-hmm. And that's really it. Like we are, like you said earlier, we're pretty obsessive about transparency. Yeah. So not every lender. I think we are the only lender that states to its clients which institution they lend the funds to generate that interest, being Genesis in our case.
So on the one hand, with the crypto interest rates, that's getting consolidated together or kind of bundled together and sent to Genesis. And then on the other side, with the loans, it goes to BitGo into their cold storage with their kind of security and insurance and stuff like that.
Correct. So that would be the setup for both products.
Fantastic. Now, one other thing I wanted to talk about, and it's something I mentioned, I did a kind of an overview of kind of Ledn when I started, when I actually kind of put some crypto into the kind of platform a few months ago, and I did a kind of like walkthrough of how it kind of worked. And one of the things that was quite interesting, and I haven't seen it from other people, is this B2X. And I tried to kind of explain it as best I can. I'm not sure I did a kind of great job. So it works on the loan side of things, but basically allows you to deposit a certain amount of Bitcoin and double the amount. So effectively you're putting in, say, 1 Bitcoin, you will then give the person a loan to buy another Bitcoin. So almost like 100% kind of back loan. And then both of those Bitcoins are then held in the account on Ledn. And is this effectively, because I know, are you effectively just kind of like doing all the housekeeping between somebody saying, I'll deposit 1 Bitcoin, say for example, Bitcoin was 10,000 just for the sake of ease. I would take $5,000. I could then go away, buy half a Bitcoin. I could then redeposit that and then get a quarter of $2,500, go away, buy a quarter of a Bitcoin, put that back. Is that kind of basically kind of how it works? You're kind of like taking all those kind of steps away from someone without them having to kind of like go away and do it themselves and pay all those kind of costs and transaction fees and stuff.
That's absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. So B2X really came as a result of us seeing our clients do exactly that. So we said, okay, well, if people are doing this and they're going through the hassle of getting the loan, going out, doing, coming back, buying the Bitcoin, and just over and over, is there opportunity for us to make this a 1 or 3 click process and have people be, save them some hours of their day and potentially a lot of fees from other exchanges and transfer fees, etc. Yeah.
So obviously the idea behind this, and this is not financial advice, obviously, disclaimer. The idea is if you think the price of Bitcoin is going to go up and you want more exposure to Bitcoin, but you don't necessarily want to kind of come up with the funds, you can lock in the Bitcoin you have, double the amount, you've doubled your risk and exposure to it. But if it goes up, you then can pay back your kind of loan at the original kind of price. If Bitcoin doubles in price in the next 3 months or 6 months or whatever, you're buying that Bitcoin at the price today, and then you can kind of pay off that 50%, and you'll have more at the end of the experiment, as it were.
That's absolutely right.
So the other things I'm kind of interested in now, one of the things, you know, I really like about Ledn is its simplicity, but do you have plans for any more coins to be added to the kind of platform? I know, you know, a few people have sort of mentioned to kind of me the idea of kind of Ethereum, obviously, you know, a big player in the kind of industry. Are there any plans to add more coins, stable coins, or cryptocurrencies?
Yes, there are.
Wow.
And so yes, we are working on a few very interesting updates and features. We're always working, and we're always working on the next thing. So it's coming. As far as other assets, so Ethereum is one that we're talking about, and that will likely come online in the platform. So we'll release more information around that when we have a date for it. And the other request that we get often from our clients is more stables. So different types of stables. So in the region that we have a lot of clients in, which is, we have clients in over 100 countries, but we have a large cohort of them in Latin America. And so in that part of the world, the stable coins by Tether and DAI are pretty popular. The other feature that we'll be also pushing on the site is the ability to buy and sell Bitcoin, basically with your stables. So you can basically go in between your savings accounts. So that's something that we're working towards and hoping to have that released very soon.
See, I think that would be fantastic because, I mean, maybe not so much at the moment, but I think if we see like a really nice kind of bull run, maybe towards the end of next year and we're topping out, I think, you know, the ability for people to kind of like scale out a Bitcoin maybe into kind of stable coins if they think we're going to hit a top and without within this platform whilst, you know, without having to remove it or withdraw it, I think would be fantastic.
Yeah, we're always looking for ways to how we can improve the experience. So that's something that, you know, you could be on the lookout for. We're going to be working on and releasing this year.
And before we wrap up, something I like to do with everybody I interview on the channel is, and again, not financial advice, but can you give me your prediction for the price of Bitcoin at the end of the year? Just a bit of fun.
Ooh, yeah, I love that.
It's a bit easier for you because we're already in August. People back in January had a bit longer to go. But
no, it's a great question. So, I mean, I don't have like a, you know, I don't draw the chart, so I don't have like a precise goal. But I'll give you my 2 cents from a macro standpoint.
Yeah.
I think towards the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if we are right around 2025. So I want to say, if I have to give you a number, I'm going to say we're, you know, probably around 21.
So you think we may well hit an all-time high this year?
I think so. I think it's going to be a slow ride up to the all-time high because there's going to be people trying to reject it and short it, etc.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be I think it's an inevitability. So whether it happens in January, whether it happens in March later this year, I would expect us to be over all-time highs at some point in Q1 or Q2 next year.
Yeah, well, I was quite similar. I think back in January when I did this first prediction, I said between 16 and 19 by the end of the year. I thought, you know, there's a chance we might hit an all-time high, but I think there'll be a rejection initially and we'll kind of come back down. But I thought if it's somewhere between 16, 17, 18, something like that, I thought that would be fair with a look maybe to, you know, break through the all-time high end of first quarter next year or something like that. I may be well out, who knows?
We both might be out to lunch, but at least we'll have lunch together.
I've had predictions from sort of about 11,000 up to about 40,000. So yeah, we shall see. We shall see.
Yeah. Well, I hope that we're right. That'll be a great end of the year.
Yeah, it would, really would. Well, thanks so much for your time. Really nice to speak to you. I'll put a link down below. So there's a link to Ledn down below in the description. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. But thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it. It's obviously a really busy time for you at the moment. So I really appreciate the time taken to speak to me today.
No problem, Dave. It's a pleasure.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.